You're listening to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home. Nathan Nottingham is your host today, and he'll be chatting with Andy Treno.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Vetted VA podcast, Your Journey Home, and we are continuing our series of interviews with Vetted VA professionals. These are the men and women that have made up Vetted VA for what it is over the last 5 years. They serve in the groups. If you're in the Vetted VA Facebook group, the main group or the pros group, you see them as moderators. Yeah, they're on the website. If you go to vettedva.com, you'll find them. And really, this is our time to just get to know them a little better. So my guest today is Andy Treno. He's out of the north. He looks like Brendan Fraser. He plays hockey like the best hockey player I've ever met in my entire life, because I grew up in the Northwest and we don't play a lot of hockey there. So he has that, and he goes by the Loan Goalie. So Andy, welcome
Thank
to
you.
the podcast.
That's quite the introduction. And to be clear, I wasn't a great hockey player unless you lower the bar to the level of apparently your friend. So yeah, in right company, I'm a decent player. Other than that, I'm just a big fan and volunteer and kind of all sorts of life. But thank you for the good introduction.
Well, you're like 6'8", aren't you? Like, you're huge.
6'3", so
a
taller
bigger
than
personality just makes me think like 6'8".
Yeah, there we go.
You got a huge personality and a big
yourself.
smile. Yeah. Well, man, thanks for being on this, and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you hail from, how you got in the mortgage lending. I want to hear the story. I want to hear who you are.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, you covered it. I'm from Minnesota, so like you said, the Great North up here. Grew up here, spent about a decade out in Colorado between going to college, got a degree in finance in real estate, and then started working at a bank after college. Thought I wanted to be a financial advisor. Had a little history in the mortgage business because that's what my dad did when I was growing up. So,
Okay.
that was kind of table conversation around the house. And every once in a while I had summer jobs working at title companies, things like that. That was normal for me. But working at the bank and seeing how they did mortgages, yeah, it was real eye opening and made me realize I needed to get out of there and that I could do a lot better helping people by coming over to the broker world where my dad was. And that was kind of my transition from, I think I want to work in financial advising, to realizing that mortgages are financial advising too. And I had a gift for it. I would watch the way that people communicated with customers very poorly. I would watch the way that they sold products that even they knew weren't in that customer's best interest.
Yeah.
And it's hard to fault those people. That was their job. And what I didn't like about working at the bank is we had one set of products, we had one set of rates, and we had one set of underwriters. So if rates were bad, you had to sell bad rates. And I can't fault the guy who's trying to make a living selling that product for selling that product. He's trying to feed his family.
That's right. That's right.
But
that's all they had options. Right.
Yeah.
So how did you so you grow up in the family, you're kind of aware of it. I didn't go into HVAC, even though my dad, that's what I grew up listening to. But one of my first jobs was working for a plumbing company that he worked with a lot, in heating and air conditioning stuff that he would do. So you kind of see how you could fall into something like that. But you go from bank, like, why move to a brokerage now? Like, where are you at? Which company are you with, and how that transition happened? What was the aha moment?
Yeah, so like I said, the aha was just seeing what they do on the mortgage side, and I'd call. So I'd be talking to my dad or my brother and say, hey, what are your FHA rates looking like? We're selling 6.5 or whatever the rate was then.
Yeah.
And I remember one conversation specifically. My dad laughed and was like, "You're kidding me. If I did that deal, I wouldn't be able to look the customer in the eye. I'd be making like $30,000. How much are they paying you?" And I had my head down. I'm like, well, I'm not a loan officer, so I get $490.
Oh my gosh.
So it was gross seeing the profit that was being made there.
Yeah.
Long story short, moved back to start working in the broker world in 2009, which gosh, I realized that, some of our viewers may not even have been around or aware of what was going on back then, but it was not a good time to be in the mortgage business and not a good time to say that you're a mortgage broker. But
Right.
I,
Right.
I saw how much better it was. And I, through no move of my own, companies kept going out of business. So I was at three or four different companies while never moving my office because places changed names and went out of business. And
Oh.
I just kept doing my job. And oh, now we're Lakeland Mortgage today. Okay, now we're River City. And eventually I found my way to where I'm at now. I've been at Edge Home Finance for 11 years.
Yep.
They do things the right way. We've got a great culture, we've got low overhead. They allow me to run my business how I want, which is it's a dream. I basically get to run my own business, but I don't have to worry about accounting and payroll and licensing and all that stuff that I'm terrible at.
Yep. So you get into it, you're in the business, you're a lot of people don't go to college like, I'm going to be a mortgage broker. In fact, I've never seen that on a line of like, hey, this is a major you should take. But you've got some interest in what you can do financially. You've got some interest there from the history of the family. Um, what what was the aha moment for you in VA lending? Like what triggered that? Because I from your story, you didn't serve,
No,
right? No, okay.
nope.
So like me, there's no service there. What was the takeaway there?
So I have an uncle who served. It's something that's important to our family. And even though I didn't serve, it's just been something that I've always been incredibly appreciative of. I say it often that we all here, yourself included, we live very comfortable lives because of the people who choose to do those jobs. And a lot of
Yeah.
those jobs aren't fun. They're not jobs that most people would do. And we live an incredibly good life. So it really just comes from a place of gratitude and thankfulness. When I was in college, I had a number of friends who served and were going to Iraq and Afghanistan. I had some friends that were actually stationed down in Colorado Springs, and I was up in Fort Collins. So my
Mhm.
house kind of became like ground zero when they were in town. They wanted to come up and hang out and let loose for a couple days. That was my house. We always had room on the couch, so I got to see it through the eyes of the people who were living it. So it started from a place
Got
of
it.
gratitude, and then seeing the sacrifices that my friends were making, physically and mentally, and their families. It's just been something I've always been really appreciative of.
I understand that for sure. Um, let's talk about you. You were one of the early. You jumped quick when VetaVA kind of became a thing. And it was just a Facebook group. I remember running into you out there, like you had become aware of it, and were around quite a bit. What was your biggest takeaway with starting out with VetaVA and what the Facebook group started as and what it became later?
Well, it's kind of what I was just referring to. It was all about, hey, I knew Christopher. I knew you from doing continuing ad, but
Hmm.
you weren't even really involved then. It was Christopher, the crazy bearded Marine guy who was yelling at people at Fuse, who started this group to help veterans.
Yep.
And that was it. My friend Tom here, who's at Edge, said, "Hey, they need some more help educating veterans, and you like helping veterans. Can you take a day or two a week and go on there and answer some questions?" And that was it. I just wanted to help and educate, and that was all I really set out to do.
And it's quite a bit, man. Thinking about how much education has gone into it, how many questions are answered and asked regularly. So, walk
And
me
those
through this. I'd love
tests. Let's not gloss over those tests.
those tests. Yeah, so far I haven't been able to gloss over that. Almost everybody brings it up, one way or the other. So, what I haven't told many people is that I'm redoing all the tests right now, and so they're going to get harder. Yeah, but you're welcome. I'm glad you're done.
Do I have
All
to do
right.
them again?
No, I wasn't going to make you do them again. I wasn't going to make you
Okay,
do them
good.
again.
Yeah, make them harder. You definitely need to make them harder.
So if you're considering all the conversations you've had, both in VetaVA but also in your business, right, and kind of how you have worked to help overcome misinformation, overcome misunderstandings about the VA home loan. What's one of your favorite myths or misunderstandings that you get to teach around, to overcome, help people see, oh gosh, I'm incorrect here and here's why?
Yeah, I think there's a couple easy ones out there just because they're so common that we run into them. The couple that come to mind right away are the I can't get a second VA loan, and we see that so much. Me personally, embedded VA,
Mhm.
all the time. People are saying that one. The more frustrating ones are the battles with ignorance that
Yeah.
unfortunately we still have. So when you're talking to, whether it be a seller or another professional who's got a negative opinion, and they throw every objection that they have against it, you answer every one of them with logic and data and facts, and then they still come back with the, yeah, I still just don't know.
Yeah.
So that's the most frustrating, because as we've shown in the group, when you look at the facts, it is the best loan out there. It does have
Yeah.
lower default rates. It does have higher pull through rates. You can get two VA loans, going back to where I started my ramble here, and that's the frustrating piece, is when you can't get through to people. But more often than not, when you come at them with facts, you educate people, and I think we've changed. I know we've changed a lot of minds with the group.
When you think about, um there's always a story, right? There's a story of I had great success or I had a great failure, but it's the one that kind of sticks with you pretty hard, like hardcore when it comes to VA loan. What's your story? Success or failure, and what was it? What happened?
So great one recently, and it kind of comes to what I was just talking about. Had a realtor friend of mine who admittedly doesn't know a lot about VA loans come to me with a customer who couldn't buy a house because the refinance on their old house didn't go through, and they needed that refinance so they could buy with 0% down.
Oh, sure.
And I'm like, hold on, go back. Let's back up here. So, long story short, she was trying to refinance out of a mortgage in the twos into a conventional loan so that she could buy a new primary residence with her VA to get zero down.
So she was trying to
I
refinance out of the VA loan.
Out of a VA loan, and this was last year when rates were in high sixes. We might have even been looking at sevens. I mean, it
Yeah,
was it was way more than double her interest rate, but she wanted to keep the house to rent it out. She's got a goal of having a lot of investment properties,
got it.
and it was hundreds of dollars a month that it would have cost her. And thankfully, my friend, who admittedly doesn't know a lot, said, call Andy. Thankfully, this first loan officer was so bad at his job. Not only did he incorrectly advise her, he couldn't get the damn loan approved either. So she got declined for the refinance, which is how she got sent to me. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes here.
Yeah,
So
don't refi. Why are you refining?
exactly, exactly. She's become a good friend of mine now. She's looking at her next house to buy as an investment, non VA. Like I said,
Yep.
she's got a lot of aspirations. She's become a good friend, and we laugh about the fact that, like, the first thing that I did is tell you not to do a loan, so I didn't make any money, and that was the right thing to do.
That's a trustworthy way. And I assume then what she was going on is that old idea that you just talked about too previously. You can have more than one VA loan,
Yep.
but she probably thought I have to get rid of this VA loan and refinance it into conventional so that then I can restore my entitlement to go buy this other one. And assuming on where you're at, like she probably wasn't even near capping her entitlement out um
No,
in that
exactly.
2%.
Yeah, she's got enough room to buy another primary.
Yeah.
She's
Depending on
got
the price, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, but for the price range that she wants to be in, she's still got more room in there. And the the big lender that has lots of ads wherever you are, whether you're on TV or your phone or on the internet,
Yeah.
they hammer
Yeah.
you with ads. And she got a guy in a call center in Detroit, and I'm sure he lit up thinking, "I'm going to get a refinance and a purchase. Wow, my
Right.
lucky day!" And he got nothing.
Well, that's good. So I want you to teach that then. Give me the details here because what you're talking about is is bonus entitlement. You're talking about regular entitlement. You're talking about existing entitlement after you made your first purchase. So walk me through the high levels. Anybody listening to this who's like, hold on, I want to buy more than one. Like I wanted to get investments. What do they need to know to ask intelligent questions of the loan officer they work with on how to do this?
Yeah. So, high level, first time you get a VA loan, it's unlimited. You can have any loan amount that you want, and individual lenders might cap their loan limits, but as far as the VA is concerned, they're not going to cap you at what you can get. So if someone tells you, you're capped at 800, that's not the truth. Either have that broker look at one of their other investors, or go talk to
Yeah.
someone else, because there is no limit on that first. After that first, part of your qualification, one of the first things we do is pull your certificate of eligibility. So if you're talking to a loan officer and you don't already have your certificate of eligibility, make sure they pull that right away.
Yep.
With that certificate of eligibility, that tells us how much of your entitlement that you used on that first loan. Without getting into the nerd math, because even though I'm a finance guy and I like the math, that everyone wants to see me pull out a whiteboard and multiply by 4 and divide by
Yeah.
4 and
Divide, subtract,
but
multiply.
exactly. Well, you can divide by 4 and multiply by 0.25. It comes out the same.
Yeah, it's true.
I do like to mess with our friends with that one too, but
That's
that's just
fun.
math jokes. So nonetheless, we can take that COE, we can see what you have left. And then here's
Yep.
the other thing that I educate a lot of people in my company too that will come over and say, Andy, I got the math down. I did it, and my customer can buy a $300,000 house and use his VA loan, but he really wants a $400,000 house. So we got to go conventional. And we see that all the time. And that's
Right.
also false. So if we remember, what the VA is doing is they're guaranteeing 25% of your loan. So what
Mhm.
that means in that person's scenario, they're going to guarantee that 25% all the way up to $300,000. Any dollar over that, the veteran has to basically make that guarantee themselves. So
Yep.
25 cents on the dollar after that. That means to that veteran in that scenario, go buy that $400,000 house with a $25,000 down payment. And you're going to have the low interest rates of a VA loan, and 25 grand down payment isn't bad either. You can always weigh those options, but nonetheless, we do the math. We see what the max you can do with zero down is, and you can still use it even above that loan amount as well.
See, and in that scenario, if people are listening, like, well, that's still a lot of money down. Well, hold up, because the $400,000 at $25,000 down, that's just a little over 5%, like barely scratching the 5% surface. And so when you do that, instead of in a conventional, or you're basically saying, hey, put 5% down, we'll give you interest rates, which the VA interest rates are always lower because they're less risky and they're backed by the VA, right? You get no PMI. You may have a funding fee. It's a one-time fee that's actually calculated into the principal balance of the loan. So it's not even cash out of pocket unless you choose to pay it. But with that down payment, you've even reduced your funding fee just a little bit. If I'm doing my math right.
Yep,
Am I right, Andy? Yeah.
because you're over 5%.
Yeah. So you would have actually reduced your funding fee a little bit. And so if you have 10% disability or more or some outstanding disability claims, you may not even have a funding fee. I mean, it's a no-brainer when you put the math side by side and go, why would you do that? Here's how you're going to do it this way. And a lot of times in those discussions, they're like, I had no idea. It's like, all right, well, sit down. I need about 2 hours with you. I'm going to blow your mind. Then you're going to be like, I will never do another one this way again. Like I will always get it right. That's what we want
Yeah,
people to do.
exactly. And I don't know about 2 hours. That seems like a lot, but it's maybe that's your speed.
I like to embattle the points too much. Like I just keep beating them up over and over.
You can't
Um,
win. But bottom
what?
line,
Yeah,
I look at my job as an educator, and when we do
yeah.
have those scenarios, I'll put them side by side, and I'll be the first to hate on PMI too. Sorry, my PMI mortgage friends,
Right.
but
Sorry, Arch. Like we love you.
yeah, but nobody likes it. But at the same time, we kind of give it a bad rap. All it is it's a cost of borrowing money. And when
Yep.
I look at that side by side, if your interest rate is a 0.5% higher, and then the PMI is, depending on your situation, a quarter to a 0.5% as well. So let's say a 0.25%. Well, 0.5% higher in rate, 0.25% in PMI. All right, you're 0.75% higher in your cost to own this house. It's kind of a no-brainer to, in that scenario, pay that extra 5 grand.
The way you just said that is accurate. No, I feel like we should say it in you know standardized economic discussions more often. It's the cost of borrowing money.
Yep.
Interest is literally the cost of borrowing money. Which is why when interest is low, everybody's borrowing as much as they can because they're literally locking in the cost of that dollar versus inflation. It's the cheapest money they can get. It's why I've even got student loans now, and I've been out of school for 20 years, right? But I don't pay them off because they're locked in at 2.5%. It's really cheap money, and I'd rather take the cash I'm earning now to invest in myself in the future and just pay the debt.
Yeah,
So it's the cost of borrowing money. I love how you say that. I think we need to say that so much more. Like, yes, the interest rate is higher. Okay, your cost of borrowing the dollar is a little bit higher now than it was previously. And if you also add a PMI to that, well, your cost of borrowing the dollar is more.
yeah,
So let's try to keep our costs as low as we can. And the VA loan lets you do that time and time again.
absolutely. And slight veer off course, but it's the
Take
same
it.
conversation I have with conventional borrowers. So often
Yeah.
people say, "I'll never pay PMI." Well, you're really going to spend an extra 20 or $30,000 out of pocket. Sometimes even people pulling out of investments to save,
Right.
a 0.25% on that. The cost of you pulling out of your retirement account is a lot bigger than that $70 a month in PMI that you're paying. And that's all that it is. I know it hurts to pay insurance that doesn't insure you, but that's all it is a cost of borrowing money.
You know, and I always like to say, you can trust people who've gone before and done it themselves. And so I openly share with others. I bought a house in 2006 and I almost lost it. I did 100% financing in a terrible way, right? I learned a good lesson. So when I tell you don't do it this way, I want to tell you my story. I bought my second house on a 5-1 arm with an FHA loan. So I've been there, done that. And then I refied out of it when rates came down and I knew I could do it. I bought this property, this 10 acres I'm on in Texas, with 10% down on a conventional note because I wanted to save as much cash in my pocket. And at 2.9% interest, the PMI, did I pay it? Yeah. But was I pretty sure that the market was still going up and I took the risk? I did. And so after what, 24 payments, 24 months, I literally turned around and said, "Hey, I want my PMI drop because my valuation's gone up," and they couldn't fight it. I paid $200, which was less than my PMI payment. I said, reestablish the value of my property. They go, "Oh yeah, gosh, you bought it for 500. It's worth 650 now. Okay, we'll take your PMI away." And they didn't touch my interest rate. So it's the cost of borrowing money. It's the cost of what you're trying to do. And it is a math problem. And as long as you got pros like Andy Treno in your corner, you can math it out and make the math make sense.
Yeah, I'll math it out and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Math it out every which way. Divide, subtract, multiply, multiply by 0.25. You can figure it out.
Six one,
It's
half
all
a
how
dozen
you
the other.
it's all how you move the decimal point.
Exactly.
Well, if you were talking to other pros as well as you do, Edge has grown quite a bit. I think you're well over 1,000 loan officers now. I think you guys are nationwide. But not all loan officers are created equal. So when you get on your calls and you talk about it, I'm curious, how do you pitch the training for Veta VA to other professionals? What do you tell them that they're going to get?
They're going to get better. They're going to be challenged in a way that they've never been challenged before, and I don't sugarcoat it. It's the hardest testing that I've taken between college, between NMLS licensing, between real estate license when I had my real estate license for a little bit. those tests were the most difficult tests that I took, but they're also the most beneficial. And for those that have taken it, they'll know what I'm talking about, that it taught me how to find answers that I use, the strategies that I use to pass those tests in my business every day. So it's really for people who want to be better at their job, whether they're serving veterans or whether they're helping, traditional, conventional, whatever other financing they're doing. It's going to make them better. And every penny that they spend they're going to get it back tenfold or more.
I love it. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time to talk. You are located in the great states of Minnesota, right? Did I say
Yes,
states?
sir.
I meant
You
one.
did say
States.
states, but I mean,
Yeah.
big personality here.
You still have lots of lakes, so there are multiple things up there.
Yep.
Uh, and a hockey player, your son is following your footsteps, playing hockey. You're coaching now and again, right? Or you used to? Do you still
I
coach?
I coached before, and then I took a hiatus when I had little children, and then once they started playing, I've been coaching ever since, and I volunteer on the board. If you haven't noticed, I'm one of those guys. I dive in head first with everything I do and try to help out as much as I can.
You do, and I always appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again this summer. If you can make it to summer camp, I know it's a pain in the rear for you to fly into Dallas and be anywhere near the Stars, the Dallas Stars, because of what Dallas did to your hockey team. So thank you for that sacrifice.
Yes, I'm still bitter at Norm Green, but I do hold grudges for an irrationally long period of time.
I love it, man. Well, thank you. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening this far. Andy Treno, you're going to find him on the map in Minnesota. You're going to find him on the map in a couple other states that he's also licensed in. Look around the northern hemisphere there of the U.S. and you're going to find him on the VVA Facebook group anywhere that you're looking for help and support. But the Loan Goalie, loangoalie.com, is that it?
Yeah, loangoalie.com. I make great saves for home
Loangoalie.com.
loans.
I love it, man. Well, Andy, thanks again for being here. Andy's contact information and other info will be in the show notes, whichever platform you're listening to this on, if it's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. But we'd appreciate any kind of feedback or review. We're here for your questions, all of them, no matter what they are. Please ask away. We would be happy to help you out. So thanks for listening. Andy, thank you for being here and being my guest. And until next time, we'll talk to you later. Thank you for listening to the VVA podcast, Your Journey Home. We hope this information has been helpful, enjoyable, engaging, supportive. But here's the biggest call to action for you. If you are a veteran, a service member, a family member of the same, and you have earned or have access to the VA home loan eligibility and have questions, please feel free to join us at VVA on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search for the VVA group, and you'll find it. Answer some of the questions to enter, and once you do that, you're good to go. If you're a professional, a real estate agent, lender, insurance agent, you know the drill. Well, as a professional, we'd love to have you join the professionals only group. We do all the same information, but at a little bit different scope because, well, of how you're coming into that information to support yourself and the other consumers that you work with. So please join VVA on Facebook or VVA for Professionals on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, wherever you can find it. And as always, all the white papers, the resources, the documents, and the training, the free training courses are available at VVA.com. You'll find them all there. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. My email is nathan@vettedva.com. I'm the COO, and I'm ready to help. Glad you tuned in for this episode, and looking forward to bringing you the next one. Take care.